Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Ladygang Quickie. I am Becca here with Jack and Kelty, and we have a really special guest today, a little treat for the Ladygang. Kelty, give us a little intro.
You know, we love a book here at Ladygang, and this is a trigger warning for this episode. We might be in the sads a little bit, but we're very excited to welcome visionary, philanthropist, global influencer, New York Times bestseller, co-founder and CEO of Market America and Shop.com. This woman launched multiple brands, beauty, personal care, everything you've ever used, and had the life of your dreams until a sudden tragedy happened. She lost her husband, and she is here to talk today about a very hard topic, grief. Between the dashes, as they call it in the book. The author of Scrambled or Sunny Side Up. Please welcome New York Times bestselling author Loren Ridinger.
Hi, gorgeous girls. You guys look all beautiful.
You look beautiful for talking about something so sad.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying. It's the funny thing about all this is that I've had to force myself every day to get up, no matter what, and get dressed and be presentable, because otherwise it'd be real easy to hide away.
Mm-hmm. So in the Ladygang, we have a couple different groups within our community. One of them is the Ladygang grief group. And and when you go in there, it's actually a really beautiful thing, because women that have gone through huge losses or have had big tragedies, they support each other and they just allow each other to feel sad. I would love to start by talking about a little bit where this book begins for you and what you've been through in your life. And then we'll get into the skills and what you've learned.
Yeah, I think, well, the beginning was just probably the hardest time in my life. You know, I just really had to, there's a different Loren from the start of the book and a different Loren from the end of the book, no doubt. You know, I miss the Loren before the book. It's funny because we become different people. I don't think anybody really understands that. I don't think there's an end to grief. I don't think there's a way that I'll ever have a solution for anyone, and vice versa for grief. I think it's something that you just learn to live with, and you become this different person, and you embrace it, because it means that you loved. And I've had to look at it in so many different ways to accept it for what it is. But really, it's a hard thing to accept.
So your husband and you were married for how long?
36 years.
36 years. You were like 18 years old when you met.
Yeah, I was mad in love with him. From day one, I fell madly in love with him. He was, 18 years older than me, had nothing to offer. He had, not a car, not even an apartment, couldn't even afford to take me to dinner. I just thought something was really special about him. And I had never dated anyone older. I only had one boyfriend before him. And I fell mad in love with him overnight. And he took me, my second date, he took me to a cemetery. And he said, get out of the car. And I was like, what is going on? I'm either dating a lunatic and a psychopath, and it's over for me here, or this could be the greatest experience of my life. And, I was 18. I was, in North Carolina, and, I was living my best life too. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just enjoying, getting out of the house. And he said, get out of the car, pick any one of these tombstones. What do you tell me about it? What do you see it's in common? I was like, I don't know. I was scared to talk. And he's like, you see that the line between the birth date and the death date? And I said, yeah. He said, that's the dash. And if you're going to be with me, we're going to do something with it. Oh. And I remember thinking, I've fallen in love with this guy at this moment. It changed my life in that second. And it was a remarkable journey.
Yes.
How many years out are you from him passing?
2.5 now.
Wow.
Yeah, 2.5. So it's been, this journey of trying to figure out who you are and what you are and where you go from here. And you realize, like, all the things you've worked your whole life for. Like, we had no money. We built this incredible empire, had a life that people would only dream about. And you realize at the end of it all, money doesn't matter at all. Won't bring you any happiness. It won't, people's lives go on. Time keeps going. Time doesn't heal anything because it's just an emotion. It's just a thing. It's not an emotion. It has no feeling. You realize you're left in this circle that you're stuck in, and you don't know how to get out of it, and you don't know how to heal from it. I went to 5 different therapists. I fired all of them. I really struggled. I really struggled. My daughter, it wasn't until that I heard an interview that my daughter did when somebody asked her how her mom was doing and how was she doing without her dad. And she said, I didn't just lose my dad, I lost my mom too.
Mm.
And that was enough to break me,
Yeah.
because I just, my whole life I lived for JR and Amber and those 3 grandchildren that we have. And so it was just turned my life upside down. It was the first time we were going away. And we had not been ever apart without the children. We had been fortunate our whole life that Amber wanted to be around us. JR had this philosophy in life, right? Like, you can have your kids come visit you at holidays. They'll come visit you around a hospital bed when you're dying, or we can choose to have them work with us and choose to spend time with them. And they can choose to be with us because they want to be with us, not because they have to, because we're their parents. And so we chose that life of being with our kids all the time, regardless of what we were doing. That became first and foremost in his life and my life. And we never took a trip without the kids. And this particular time was the first time. He had written me October 17, 2021, and wrote me a note and put it on my bedside, as he often would when he thought I was too busy to pay attention. And he wrote, to JR from JR, which is his way of saying, this is to you, Loren, but read it when you can. And it said, I want you to go away with me right now. And NOW was underlined. And he said, I don't know how much time we have left. And if we run out of time, what difference will it make? We've given our life to people for 36 years. We've built an empire. We don't need any more. It won't matter anymore what we do. But if we don't have each other, what do we have left? Let's go do it. Let's go live the final chapter out together. Go charter a boat wherever we want, sail. He loved boats. I wasn't a big boat person, but I did it. And he was like, let's go sail the Med. And I wrote him back. And I said, give me till August of 2022.
Oh,
give me till
wow.
August, because it was our company's 30th convention.
Right.
And I said, JR, I don't know if we'll ever have another one, if we'll ever see another one. I don't know if we'll ever be, we'll be young enough to ever see it. So I want to make it big, and I want to put my energy into this myself. And I want, pull out all the stops. And he's like, all right, but August, we're going away right after it's done. And we did. We had, Jennifer Lopez's and Ben's wedding, which we all know how that turned out right after. And then we got a private plane. We went to Croatia, which was, interestingly enough, a place on his bucket list. I don't know why. I never had the desire to go, but he had been hounding me for years. And I said, okay, we'll go there. I chartered a yacht. And I remember I have the video of him on the plane. And he said, I can't believe you made this happen.
Oh.
And we lasted, 3 days. And he walked by me and took a deep breath. And I said, why are you sounding like that? Why are you making a noise like that? Why are you holding your breath? They said, I'm fine. Stay here. And I was like, I'm in charge of my house. I'm the boss. But this moment I wasn't. There was times when Jared would comment that leave me alone. Just let me have my thing. And so he's like, give me a moment to stay here. And I didn't know that was his final breath, that he had a pulmonary embolism in that moment and never recovered, just passed out and died on that yacht. On our first vacation, in years since before COVID, and without the children for the first time. And oddly enough, he had been quiet those first 3 days. It's almost like he had some sense, or somebody comes to you, like if you've ever seen the movie, I just recently saw it with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. Gosh, it's just left my mind. But it's almost like somebody comes to you and tells you, hey, wrap it up.
Oh.
And he was very quiet. He had woke up that morning and said, I want to let you know you've made me the happiest person on earth. And that was a very unusual statement for JR, because JR could tell me he loved me a million times, but happy was something that I never know if somebody has an appetite for, when I say success, Jared didn't have an appetite for money. I don't want to give that impression. He actually had an appetite to help other people succeed. And he was never fully satisfied unless he could help one more person. And I used to wonder, like, do you ever get full? Are we ever going to just stop
Mm-hmm.
working? Are we ever going to chill out? And he just woke up that morning and said, if you've ever wondered, I want to let you know you've made me the happiest person on earth. And I was like, why are you saying that? Stop saying that. Don't say that. I don't want you to say that. I don't like the way you're saying that and why you're saying it. And he said, well, I just want you to know that. I said, well, you've made me happiest person on earth too. And, it was like 4 hours later, I lost him.
Wow.
The book, it's been such a short, it's been a short amount of time. Did you feel like going in to write the book was very cathartic, or were you just like so broken that you're like, well, I may as well write this down? Like, it seems like taking on something like writing a book.
Angry. I was angry. I was really angry. I was angry at myself for putting it off. I was angry at myself because we included the kids in everything that, always waiting to make sure the kids' schedule worked. Amber's grown, her 3 children, she had her own life, but I always made sure because, we'd always done that our schedule lined up with theirs. And, I waited on several times he wanted to go away when he would say, well, if they can't come, forget it, Loren, let's go anyway. And I would be like, no, let's just move it to another time. I had put off too many trips, too many things for Loren and JR. And, he never got upset with me over it. He would just say, okay, we'll do it another. And so, I didn't expect our clock to expire. I didn't expect to run out of time. And I was angry, and I was really dealing with this person I didn't like right then. I really disliked myself during grief. And I still have moments like that, but I've worked so hard on myself to get through the anger and the upset, and really worked on it myself, and realized that there is no magic formula for this, and that you will have to suffer. You will have to go through pain. I lost my mom and dad at a very young age. I knew grief. I lost my mom, who was my best friend at 21 years old. I felt I had been robbed then. So to lose JR, somebody I'd lived my whole life with for 36 years, I knew him longer than my mom, longer than my dad. We had nothing, and we did it all together. He'd done anything for me, and I would have done anything for him. So to lose him without, taking an account, I was mad he had written me the letters, that he was like, okay, it's time for us now. It was almost like somebody giving him notification, like, it's time for us to lock it down, Loren. We need to go do something together because we've done all this our whole life, and now we got to enjoy. And I was like, okay, 6 more months, wait 6 more months. I was mad. I was really mad at myself.
Is that the lesson then? Like, I think it's annoying that, and we've talked about this a little bit, Becca, before too, is like, everyone's like, well, what did you learn? And what do you want to tell people about it? Like, sometimes you just kind of want to be able to just be sad.
I think there's a couple lessons in it. The book was called Scrambled or Sunny Side Up because every day JR would ask me, should I have my eggs scrambled or sunny side up? And every day I'd wake up and I'd say, Jesus Christ, it's your damn eggs. I don't know. But, the first 10 years of your relationship, I was like, have them sunny side up or have them scrambled today, baby. Whatever you want, I'll get them for you. And as time went on, when you get more and more busy, it's kind of like you're a pain in the ass. Why are you asking me how you should have your eggs? I'm not even eating eggs. You know what I'm saying? So I got pissed off. And instead of I didn't realize that was his love language. I didn't realize it was no different than me picking out the shoes for him, the shirt for him. I missed it. I got so busy with our life, that building what we were building, that I missed that was part of his love language. The communication like that I would take care of him, pick the eggs for him, pick the shirt for him, make sure his shoes match. He loved to match his shoes to his shirt, to make sure everything was perfect. I didn't realize that was his love language because mine was different. And I learned that the hard way. Why couldn't I just wake up and say, have scrambled today, baby? Instead I was a bitch about it. And so it really, I had to really learn to forgive myself for that. And that's a big lesson for me. Like, pay attention to the signs of what the love languages are. They're not always the same. We don't communicate the same. And I didn't ever see that because our marriage was so great the way it was, I thought, and he thought, and we were great that way. But I missed the things that were the little things that were important. Even though he would say, oh, they don't matter to me. They matter if they matter to him. And also I think not putting things off, not putting things off that he wanted to do. Not, JR was a work hard, play hard type of guy. He would go in hard. He was the guy who could work, and we could do a 7-day speaking tour, but then he could go on a 24-hour party binge. He'd be like a rock star. And I'd be like, Jesus, I can't keep up with you. Because I always thought I would die. Everybody thought that I would go before JR, even though he was older. JR was a lunatic. His parents lived till 100. He should have lived till 100. And he had a bad knee from a sports injury. And that's where that blood clot he had gotten from the vaccine was hiding. And he got in that final booster, and he had asked me, why don't you get the booster? I said, I don't even know why you're getting the booster. Why are you getting the booster? I've had COVID 5 times. And he said, well, I'm doing it because I never got it. And I would get COVID so many times, and I would say, Jared, just stay away from me. I'm going to stay in the guest house. And I'd wake up and he'd be in the bed with me, and that's the type of love that he had for me. So, and I loved him that way, but I was, managing so many things in the house and managing so many things at work that I let that consume my frustration sometimes. Does that make sense at all? Like sometimes you get frustrated. You're doing a million things at once. You're helping him manage a business, managing the people at the house, managing all the things you have. And all of a sudden you realize you don't want all these things. And at the end of the day, after I lost him, I didn't want all the things anymore because I felt like it was part of the part that stole my time from him. Part of the things that took away my time were the things that consumed it. And so you work your whole life to have all these beautiful things, but yet you don't really want them at the end of life because they actually consume your being. And I just...
That's very powerful.
It's a powerful statement because, I'm going through it right now. My husband bought me this beautiful country home in Greenwich, Connecticut in 2018, and I'm selling it on Saturday. I close on Saturday, and my kids were devastated. Said, Mimi, why would you do that? My daughter was like, why would you do that? You don't need the money. And I said, it's not about the money. It's about my peace of mind now. I let it rob our peace. The moments that we could have had to go travel, to be free, to do the things I was consumed with, making sure this was fixed, making sure that was fixed, making sure everything was okay with the business. And at the end of the day, I've learned that those are the things that are not really worth it, that less is more, so we could do more. And I missed it. Sure, we had great times, but I missed the final part he wanted to do.
Well, I think it's really interesting because a lot of times I read those articles that are like, here's what people said on their deathbed about like the secret to life and what you should focus on. And it's such an interesting perspective from you in this book because you have all of those moments because you're living it in real time, but you're living it at almost a younger age where you can give that advice, that almost deathbed advice, because you have, does that make sense? It's like,
oh, it definitely makes sense. And I think it's such a hard thing for people to grasp because you have so much, yet you don't want it all. And you just want to have some sense of peace again.
So Serena Williams wrote the foreword for this book, no big deal, and also convinced you to try group therapy, which sounds like a nightmare to me. I like my therapist to know my psychosis one-on-one.
I tried.
What did you realize in group therapy and why did it help? I mean, our mission here at Ladygang is how do we turn your story into something that brings everyone some comfort today? So
I was struggling. Nobody told me that when I lost my mom and dad, I felt I wasn't even that close with my dad. I felt like it was an end of an era. You kind of lost an orphan. Like, where do I belong? I lost my parents. But when I lost JR, I was in charge, always running things, speaking on stages everywhere. And all of a sudden, my confidence was gone overnight. I felt like I could never speak again. I could never succeed again. I couldn't run this company. How would I do this, even though we had done it together for so many years? I went to all these group therapy. These individual therapists, and all they kept telling me was time will heal all and you can date again. And, I was just saying, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. And then Serena said, send me a passage. And in that passage, every day she would send me a passage. And in that passage was a advertisement for group therapy in Miami. And I went and I, almost didn't walk in. I saw these like 8 women sitting in the room, and I thought, I'm just not like any of those people. And when you're going through grief, you think you're the one who's dealing with it the hardest.
Mhm.
You don't think about somebody else's pain. And so I went in there and I listened to all these women talk about how they each love their husband on different levels, some more than the others. And none who I felt ever loved their husband as much as I did, which is expected. That's how people are about their relationship. But I heard something that I'd not heard before. It's something I wasn't encountering. They were all going through it. They were all suffering. Many of them were suffering the same way I was. Some of them were suffering less. They were going through like a separation, and they were struggling with that. They had not come to peace with their relationship yet. But all of them except me were in there, and they were struggling how they were going to pay their bills again, how they were going to send their kids to school, how they were going to make a mortgage payment. And it hit me like right between the eyes. And it was like, I don't have to worry about that. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be in the pain that I was in and to have to worry about going to get a job, putting my kid through school, how I was going to make the light bill. And like a light bulb switched in my head and said, I will go back. And I found my why again. I will go back and spend my life helping people have another way, a plan B. If they need to make extra money, teach them how to do it, go teach people how to become entrepreneurs, which is what I'd done my whole life anyway. And it's funny that it came back 360 full circle, but it was like a light bulb moment for me. And I called Serena when I got out and I was like, you won't believe what just happened. And she said, I just wanted you to find one thing, just one thing, whatever it was. And that's what I needed to find out. And then I realized in that moment when I got home that, my husband had planned his whole life, even though we never had anything when we first started dating. He had planned and put away our whole life that I would never have to suffer, or my kids, for the rest of their lives. But my suffering would go other ways. Being a young widow, somebody who wished that we had, it was all those years before that I was the one saying, hey, JR, let's take a break together. Let's go travel the world together. And then all of a sudden, as we got bigger and bigger, I was the one who didn't want to stop working. I was the one who didn't want to slow down. And I felt like he was, why are you acting old? And that's when, for the first time ever, 18 years separation started to come into play. And I never really talked about that publicly, because I never felt it before until then. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want you to slow down. And I don't know if I want us to just go hold hands and walk on a beach. That's not my thing, And I got really angry at myself because I didn't get to do those things that he wanted to do when he wanted to do them. Sure, we did a lot of that in all stages of our life, but it's what he wanted to do then. And I lost that. And he had written me specifically in October of 2021 about it. And I lost him August 2022. So I didn't have any time to fix it. I could fix everything in my life. I could fix anything in our family, anything that was a problem. He loved us. One of the things about JR is, like, if I was on a phone having a problem, battling it out with somebody, he loved to listen to it. He loved to watch me manage problems. He just thought he was like, you're brilliant at this. You're great at this. You're like my golden, he just loved me. And so I always felt so secure in my relationship, which is how everyone should feel. And I was a pain in the ass. I'd be like, okay, have your eggs. Tell the chef how you want your eggs today. I laid your clothes out on the bed today. Okay, we got to go do this today. And it almost became like you love them so much, but you start just operating.
It's like a thing to do. It's like another part of the to-do list. Husband happy? Check.
Yes.
Kid happy? Check.
Yes, because you think you have all the time in the world. And I forgot that I don't get to choose that expiration. Can you believe in 36 years of being married to an older man who was 18 years older than me, I never once thought that I would lose him before? I never asked him, what happens if something happens to you?
Yeah.
Never asked him. I never always thought for some reason we would just magically poof together. And so I never asked it. So, part of my anger was, why didn't I talk to you about this? Why didn't you talk to me about it? He used to joke with me, like, if you ever get remarried, I'll come back and haunt you. Or I would tell him the same thing, but never did we have discussion about what would happen if it didn't work, like you could do this. But I found a letter, in his computer, 3 days before he died, that said, you are going to have a beautiful life. And we have had the most beautiful, turbulent love affair of all time. It's one for the fairy tale books. And I want you to move into your best life. I want you to live your best life. And it was in his draft folders, to JR, from JR. Never given to me, probably. And I know why, because JR would do that often. He would work on writing a draft of an email and then perfect it 100 times before he would feel comfortable sending it or print it out, probably because I'm a pain in the ass and he was looking for the perfect time to give it to me. I controlled everything around us. Everything was, what time, Loren, can I do yoga? What time should we go to dinner? What time this? And some days I'd be like, just choose your time. Well, I don't want anything to interfere. And I'd be like, nothing's going to interfere. I felt like there was a lot of pressure on me to make all the decisions. And so I don't know why I didn't just relax. It's hard to explain. I've never even said this to anybody, but you guys actually, in all the podcasts I've ever done, I've never said, like, why couldn't I just chill out and relax like you wanted me to relax? Why everything had to be so perfect and organized. And, he spent all that time in 21 putting together Amber and the grandchildren's trust. He wanted everything to be perfected. And I was like, we have time.
Let me ask you this. We had Chelsea Handler on, I don't know, 8 months ago or something. And she had written, 2 books ago, maybe, guys. She had written this book about the oranges. Do you remember?
Yeah.
What was it? She saw them.
She was, for the first time, really facing the death of her brother when she was young. She had sort of put all of that behind her and compartmentalized it and shoved it away and never wanted to face it. And she grew older and was like, I think this is time for me to face it. It's rearing its ugly head in all these other aspects of my life. Started seeing a psychotherapist, and he, one day before she walked in for her appointment, he offered her an orange. He's like, oh, I have an orange tree in my yard, and do you want an orange? And she just broke down crying. And she was like, it just represented somebody doing something so pure and kind and taking care of me. And I've never allowed that in my life. And I might be botching it, but that was the sentiment of it. And then she talked about how oranges can show up, or some symbol, whether it's a fruit or a bird or a whatever. And so in the book, Lauren Jackson, who wrote that book, Signs, where, you can ask your person who's left,
Yep.
send me the sign, and you decide what the sign is. I don't know if this is a stupid story to share. And
It's not. It really resonates with me.
In 2014, my boyfriend passed away in a hotel room at the age of 31. A valve from his heart just detached. It was a defect that just didn't go, diagnosed.
Wow.
So I, went through all the things. It wasn't a 36-year marriage. So it's like, I apologize if this is the most annoying thing. I remember after he died, people were like, well, when my grandmother died, and I wanted to punch them in the face. So
of course. No, I know exactly. I know that feeling. I've gotten a lot better about it.
Yeah. So the orange thing was so important. I was feeling so lost. And the only thing I could get myself to do at that time was just drive to yoga 10 minutes down the road in LA and be in a dark, sweaty room for an hour. So I was listening to her audiobook on my drive to the studio, and I turned my car off and I sat in the parking garage and I was like, okay, Matt, I think all of this is bullshit. I'm having trouble believing any of this. But if you're here, I want to see a orange, and I want to see it really soon.
You saw it.
I walked into that yoga class. It is hot yoga. Nobody brings a snack into a yoga class.
I know
fruit.
He brought it though.
And I sat down and I looked behind me, and there's a man behind me peeling an orange. And I broke down crying, and I just felt like throughout the years, I've just like asked for those little things. And it's like, I've vacillated between believing every second of it and talking to every psychic, every medium, every healer, and then going to a place of being like, it's all just unfair. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not buying into any of this shit. But it's like,
It's real.
yeah.
If we don't see the signs, we're actually being disrespectful to it.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it now. At first, I would have never believed that. Jerry used to tell me for years he had like 8 past life regressions. And I used to say, tell me about them. He said, I can't. He said, but I will tell you this. I said, why can't you tell me? You tell me everything. You tell me everything. Why won't you tell me these? He said, because it wasn't always perfect between you and I. But I came back this time to fix things. And I came back only for you. And I came back for this company. And we're going to do it one more time together. And I'm not coming back again after this. I used to say, I was 18 when he would tell me this. I used to say, this guy's out of his mind. He's crazy, whatever. And I didn't believe it. And I would go into his book and he had all of the books, like the famous book that's written Many Lives, Many Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's now a friend of mine, Dr. Brian. He's a friend of mine. And I called him and I said, you have to help me. I'm seeing all of these signs. JR's big symbol was hourglasses. Yesterday, when I flew home, I've been on a 17-day tour in Asia, speaking everywhere. And when I came home, I was in the airplane. I hate to fly by myself. I'm on a commercial plane in the first class cabin, basically very emotional, crying to myself with the door closed because I'm on this journey alone and I'm going home alone. Again, I'm going to go home alone. And I'm tired of missing him so much. I don't like that I have to miss him so much. I want him to come home. And it hits me that he's not coming home yesterday on the plane. And the flight attendant brings me a cup of tea and puts the tea down. I took a picture of it. And in front of the tea, she puts a small hourglass. And I'm like, how is this even
When
possible?
does a flight attendant have an hourglass?
I've never seen it in my life. I don't know if you can see it.
No way.
She brings me a cup of tea. And I guess it's like to tell me that the tea is like done.
That's crazy.
Why bring an hourglass? An hourglass is what Jerry used on stage all those years to demonstrate that we're running out of time. And that if we learn to live paying attention to the clock, we would realize that we all know how much money we have in our bank account. But he used to say, we don't know how much time we have left in our account. And I used to be like, I would see these hourglasses after he died. And when that came in on my thing yesterday, I started to cry. I was watching a movie. All of a sudden, you imagine me. I see this hourglass and I realized, just like you, Becca, that the signs are real.
Mm-hmm.
And if I disregard them, it's disrespectful. And I went to the bathroom in the plane to dry my face, to wipe my face. And I came out. Christian was in the seat beside me. And he said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. And I said, but you know what? And he said, there's an hourglass on your table. I said, I know. And all of a sudden, a song comes on from Phantom of the Opera on TV, which was our song from Phantom of the Opera.
No way.
And I realized at that moment that you cannot make sense of these things, but they happen, Becca, just like you explained. Wow. And when you ask for it, they will come. And when JR passed away, I knew he wasn't with me. I lost my mom. And when I lost my mom, I had one experience at a young age, at 20, when I lost her, that I felt somebody around me. Mm-hmm. Very shortly after she died, within a week. She was young. She was 42. And I felt this presence strongly. I couldn't explain. I'm not a religious person, not a spiritual person at the time. Now I am, but I'm a spiritual person. But not so much a religious person. And so I remember feeling that. But when JR passed away, Jennifer Lopez wrote me, said, please speak to this girl. This girl, she can help you. I was like, I'm not speaking to your people because I know how they are. I'm not doing it. Okay? I'm not doing it. I love you, but I'm not going to do it because sometimes they say things that I'm not willing to do. So I don't want to hear that. And she's like, well, okay, but she just wants you to go to JR's closet. And I said, okay, fine. I was already planning, just up front, I was already planning to go to his closet. I arrived home with his body to bring him to my children, for the first time. after waiting 10 days to get or 7 days to get out of Croatia. And when I did, I went to his room at 3 a.m. with my best friend who sat on the floor with me while I cried my eyes out. And Jared had this big, gorgeous closet with gorgeous doors. Everything was closed. I always perfectly had his clothes perfect. I'm an OCD freak, right? Not him. If there was pillows on the couch, he'd love to take a knife and cut them in pieces. He hated the pillows on the
Not
couch.
a throw pillow.
Oh yeah, he hated the throw pillows. I was the throw pillow queen. And so all the doors were closed. And when the doors open, the light goes on. When the door closed, the light goes off. No dimmer. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and my friend said, just lay on the floor for 5 minutes. Give yourself 5 minutes with him. And I had a piece of his clothing in my hand, and I must have put my head down for 2 seconds. When you pass out, I went, oh my God, and what happened? She goes, it's okay. You just fell asleep. And the lights were pitch black in there, and she starts crying hysterically. And she goes, look, what's going on? And I look up, and every light on the door is doing a dance all around the doors. And I feel the room get ice cold. And that moment, my husband, like I've never experienced before, hugged me. And if you would have told me this before I lost him, I would have told you lock me up in a mental institution. He grabbed me, he held me, and he let me know he was still there, no matter what. And that's what I think Matt did that day. And I think that's what happens. And there's no other explanation for it. I refuse to believe anything else anymore. It makes me feel better too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's comfort in that for sure.
I mean, look at Becca. She walk into a yoga room. It's impossible to see somebody with an orange.
It happened again. It happened again literally 2 months ago. I was having a hard day and I was like, show me a orange. I want to see if I believe it again. I took my son, who's now 3, to see Paddington in the movie theaters. The opening scene of Paddington is an orange factory because they make marmalade. And I took pictures and I sent it to my girlfriends and I was like, I can't make this shit up. Like I have gone a long time without asking, and I asked today of all days, and it was just like a wild. So it's like this weird comforting thing that you wish you didn't have to ask for, but it does make things, I don't know. It just makes, I think the past lives thing is also so beautiful. Many Lives, Many Masters was this book that saved my life. I literally read it one sitting, maybe 2 days after Matt died.
Let me tell you, I'm going to get you to come to my house. Me too. It changed my life. It was Jared's favorite book all those years, sat on his bookshelf. Really? I refused to read it. I was like, I don't want to read that. I'm not interested in it. I read the book in one sitting. I called somebody in Miami because, I was connected with people. And I was like, I need to meet Dr. Brian. Please, somebody. The next morning, he called me. Wow. He talked me through it. He said, listen to me. I told him everything about the lights. I told him what happened with other signs that happened. He said, Loren, that's him. Mm-hmm. We out there, we stay out there. And he explained everything that ever happened with him and how it started with the book of Many Lives, Many Masters. And then he told me that to read this other book that he did, which it changed my life too. And it was called, I believe it's called There's Only One Love. I'll tell it to you right now, but he changed my life. Mm-hmm. And he has been such a person who's helped me get through this, to see the good in it all, to see that things never end, that love never dies. And that was the other thing. I did not want to give up on love. Not looking for anybody else. And I'm sure that'll happen at some point. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's not really, I understand why it happens for people right away, because it's hard to be alone when you go through it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to ever have anything better.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not putting that pressure on me. And I think so many times that we put too much pressure on ourselves. And this time I'm just not willing to do it anymore.
Yeah.
How did you handle that? I mean,
well, I didn't, I was so young. I was 28 and there was an engagement ring in the safe in our closet. He and I had been talking about rings, and we were supposed to meet my family in Paris that summer. This happened in July and we were going, I think, in August. I don't know for sure, but the ring was in the safe. We're planning this trip. And, essentially I got this call and your life just stops and you explode into a million pieces. I mean, I don't remember the first 3 months. Like, I really have
Me too.
I remember little moments. Like, I remember having his memorial and we had to wait forever and a day to get his body home. Like, I just remember being like, I have to see it because I'm not believing it. Like, I have to see him and I have to talk to him and I have to have that moment. And so I remember the memorial. I got through it. I did the thing and then I passed out. Like, I was so angry after that memorial because I looked at all those people and I was like, they all get to go back to their life.
Yep.
This is the period on their life, like their life with Matt, and like I have to keep going. And I thought like that was the moment that I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I feel that. No.
So for 3 months, I don't remember it. And then 6 months after that, I was just kind of like very lost and still living in this house that we shared. And I actually was at a bar with my best friends from like childhood. I had gone home to Atlanta to spend the holidays, and I was in this bar and I had just started drinking again because I stayed stone cold sober. I just was too afraid to like touch any substance and like I don't know, I was afraid. I finally was like,
Me
okay,
too.
you too? Yeah, it was just such a
We're not in
instinct.
control of ourselves.
No. And so had some drinks and I had this like wild night. Like I just needed to like unleash. And I was with my childhood friends who like it was a life before Matt. So I was like,
You felt safe.
I could pretend it didn't happen for a night. And that night, my now husband was at that bar and he had been kind of had a crush on me for many years, kind of from afar, a lot of acquaintances in common. And he was never a friend, but I kind of knew his face. I kind of knew his name. And that night we ended up making out. And it was like, I never in a million years thought it was going to happen. I think I was drunk and finally like a little bit in denial. And then after that, we had a very slow burn. He did not live in LA when I was living in LA. So it allowed me I kind of got to escape in those weekends, escape the grief, escape the house, escape my
It
life.
gave you some time. It gave you a break from it.
A break. And also and then I got to leave him and still honor the grieving process for myself. It was like a weird vacation. And I'm telling you, it was like, if you do meet someone, when you do, it's like, I know it probably makes you want to like vomit to think about, but I couldn't have asked for someone better. There was never a single moment that my husband was jealous or wasn't patient or didn't understand. Like, it's like those people
That's what I was
exist.
always afraid of.
Yeah.
No.
They exist, and I think Matt sent him. Like, I don't think there's any accidents. I think, like,
I bet he did.
and I think he did, and it's like it comforts me so much in knowing that it was kind of undeniable. I didn't consciously choose my husband. I talk about it all the time that I feel like he just kind of brainwashed me into marrying him. I felt this greater pull to him, and on my wedding day, I cried my eyes out because I was like, equal parts grieving and equal parts grateful. And it's like, I think that that's the reality, is life is really beautiful and tragic. And,
Wow. You can't explain it any better than that.
Yeah. So
You
I don't
could
know.
be supposed to be in the most beautiful moment and in the most saddest moment at the same time. And I think that's the part about grief. Like, when everybody around me is celebrating, like I just finished this big tour and it was like 26,000 people. Everybody's like, you must feel so accomplished, but I felt so sad inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really express that to people because they will never understand what it's like to feel so alone. And so I booked another tour in September 15th in Asia. And my brother said, well, that's a lot on you. I mean, you're not going to miss the kids and everything. And you start to realize that your kids have grown up and everybody has their life. Life keeps moving without you.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been something I didn't expect to happen so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I've got to make space for me somehow to feel my purpose can be fulfilled. And I think you probably did the same thing too. You probably needed to feel like, you gave you love this guy so much that you needed to feel like you were okay again to survive. I felt like if I didn't have my kids, I don't know if I couldn't have walked off a building. You know what I mean? I really, I never had thoughts
Mhm.
I've struggled. And then I met Dr. Weiss and Dr. Brian Weiss, and he told me the name of the book, by the way, is called Only Love is Real. And he wrote it. And it's the story of two people who meet. He does therapy. You should put him on your show.
Yeah.
He has two people come and don't know each other 2 different days in his office, don't know each other, not under therapy. He does therapy with like Oprah and Eva Longoria, all my friends, a lot of people. And he interviews them, and they're both in search, not knowing each other, in search of somebody that they have had in this past life, but can't find them.
Wow.
Not realizing they've been looking for each other their whole lives. And they're in the same therapy session on Mondays and Thursdays. And he sets it up, and they're still married today.
No
They were
way.
looking for
Whoa.
each other their whole life. And they described each other's exact appearance, everything in this past life regression. So he's remarkable, but he helped save my life like he did yours. And I had to find him.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh.
Well,
Wow.
listen, Lauren, you are incredible. We appreciate you coming on and being so honest and open. And I'm sorry, Becca, that I gave you this at 8 a.m. But I think there's something really beautiful that nobody talks about it. And I think that's probably why the book did so well. And so if you want to grab the book, Scrambled or Sunny Side Up, it's already a New York Times bestseller, girls. So you know what? She's good, but this is a beautiful book, Living Your Best Life After Losing Your Greatest Love. The foreword is from Serena Williams, which is gorgeous. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I can't wait to see what you do next. And I feel like you guys just became best friends, which I love, over the worst topic of all time.
I know. I just started following all of you.
I love it so much. Thank you so much for being here. And
thank you guys. You guys are a breath of fresh air. It's nice to know that there are women who support women and feel what they feel. I think it's such a beautiful gift in a world that's filled with a lot of things that don't feel that way. So it feels really great to be welcomed and loved in this environment that feels safe.
Yeah.
Very safe.
I love that. It almost feels weird to say it, but go ahead, Becca.
See you next Tuesday.
Our usual tagline on Thursdays is we weren't here for a long time. We were here for a good time. Considering we all cried, I feel like maybe we're just going to skip that this week.
We're still here.
Yes. We're still here for a good time. I think that's the paradox of it all. The funny thing of it all is that we're still here for a good time. That's what life is short. Make it a great time.